3 off seasons in a row in the Philadelphia Eagles franchise. I dare you to find a better off-seasonal stretch. I dare you.
What's going on, Philadelphia? Happy May, everybody. What a fucking draft. Unbelievable. I am John Barchard along with Vince Quinn, Taylor Kredatus along in the internet ether, and we are so excited because we didn't sleep at all last night. That's how excited we were. So if it feels at all like we're dipping or we're losing our brains, it's just because there is so many amazing storylines coming out of this draft. Mainly, I don't know if you heard this, Vince Quinn, there's a bunch of fucking Georgia Bulldogs that are playing on the opposite side of Jalen Hurts with a lot of Alabama players, oddly enough, so that'll be some fun practices. But this, to me, is like drafting the Miami Hurricanes and just going, fuck it, like in the 1980s and saying, yes, we'll just take all of them, or like you guys were saying just earlier here, if Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson were all available a year apart from each other and all this stuff, and you could grab all of them, I think you would do it. And so I think I'd like to start there because there are a couple of silly arguments to be made, about is this going to be a disaster? I don't think so at all. This is exactly what you should have done. This is what we've asked the Eagles to do forever. Bullying works. There's nothing but fucking SEC culture running through the Philadelphia Eagles locker room, something I never thought we would see in our lifetime, but thank God for 2020. Vince, how are you, buddy?
Yeah, I'm great, man. And talking about the SEC culture, it is all over the place. It includes their undrafted guys. Like, everything they're doing is related to the SEC. And that's what it should be, right? Like, in terms of taking it, because what's the thing they always say with the draft? Oh, it's a crapshoot. I don't really know what a crapshoot is outside of something that people say is a crapshoot, but either way, is that like a trough that people used to poop in and it would go into the river or something? I don't know.
It's like,
but either way, thought aside.
Craps the game? That you've never played craps?
I have played. Is that what it is? It's a craps reference. It's a gambling reference.
Yes, dude. So if you crap.
Oh,
out,
I don't know. I
money,
thought of poop in a trench. So that's how I was like, I don't know. You're just wading through your gold panning and shit.
Basically the same thing. Yeah.
So so there you go. I've redefined the term.
It is a reference.
Yeah, see, I don't know shit about gambling, as now you can very blatantly tell. And as John tried to coach me through blackjack like 3 weeks ago, so
that was
down carding. It was great.
Yeah, I was a disaster. I was just getting yelled at by the dealer all the time. But the whole thing is that, right, you're getting these guys from big time programs. And what you're seeing is they're getting top-of-the-line coaching. You have a really good idea of who they are, what a good way is to use them, and they're playing against great competition. That's killer. Like, in terms of the profile of players that they're looking for, they're getting about as good a view as you can find with these kinds of prospects, right? Like, I always say this because Josh Allen went to fucking Wyoming. I don't know whoever comes out of Wyoming, and it's a miracle that they were able to develop that guy because he wasn't developed. He was just an athlete running around doing stuff when he was in college. So now he gets that refinement, and now he's a great NFL quarterback. So for the Eagles, it's kind of the same thing. You get a good look at these guys. You know what the system is. You've talked to their defensive coordinator a little bit. I know, John, you're a little excited about that, so we can get to that. But it's just a really good place to be. So when you think about the knowledge that they've got on these guys, the projection they have of these guys, and really the attitude and culture they're building with these guys, because you already have a great locker room. Now you've got Nakobe Dean and Jordan Davis at Nolan Smith's draft party, and then you see guys like Sidney Brown, nothing but great reports that guy just hustles all day and he's an absolute bookworm. Moro Ojomo was the same thing. He was yelling at all of his teammates because they didn't care enough at Tennessee or at Texas. So it's just a culture fit, scheme, everything is just so in place with this draft, and it's a masterpiece, man. It's a masterpiece.
Almost like culture would beat scheme on any given day. Would you say that's a fair statement?
Oh God, yeah. I mean, fine. I'll give you this. Yeah, give it to Chip. Give it to it's got a Chip Kelly profile of what they're looking for now, right? For Chip, he was always about the team captains and big kneecaps. That's all he cared about. That's all he wanted. When it comes to these guys now, what do you get? Well, you get SEC players, you do get team captain-like kind of guys, and just insane talents, and that's all they're doing. So I love it, man. I love it.
And
I kind of have to look at this as more or less the Georgia manifesto, yeah? Like, there is no fucking way this wasn't planned, almost probably from when the moment they drafted Jalen Hurts, at least to hopefully get on this trajectory. And, like, that's why they drafted Nakobe Dean in the 3rd round. Like, this draft meant to me, like, oh, this was the complete plan, because we were joking, just go draft the Georgia defense, and, you know, why doesn't just somebody go do that? And they went, yeah, no shit, no, we're going to do that. Because that is not only the best college defense that played against Nick Saban, that's the best defense, period. End of story. And if we're referencing Chip Kelly stuff, I'm going to say that that's where the NFL is yet again in today's day and age. This is not the old school NFL with old coaches trying to teach these kids a new system. This is a college system. We have totally wiped out any pro-style whatever mentioning, unless you want to go watch Doug Peterson in Jacksonville, and that's fine, and whatever. You know, like, the ultimate hybrid is of what I'm talking about is what Andy Reid is running. But other than that, like, the new build of what you have to do now is dramatically different from what you drafted even 5 years ago. And Vince, you know, I've talked about this for a long time. Like, I think we're seeing this is part of the effects of why everyone's draft board was so all over the place, because I think there's a massive shift in NCAA draft talent that started in that COVID year in 20 and is going to keep going for the next 10 years. And that's what we see with Jahmyr Gibbs going 12 overall, and like so many NFL head coaches and GMs that are deciding we cannot take any chances, large in part, you know, because they don't have that Eagles culture. How many even Super Bowl teams are in this position to restack with like amazing, more than likely plug and play guys next to the people that just won a Super Bowl? And like Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown and Devontae Smith are all still incredibly young as leaders in like the massive triangle of talent to develop still. Like, all of this is still happening. All of this is still happening. And in fact, like, you know, Jordan Davis, speaking of fat shaming Vince Quinn over here, looks incredibly svelte and looks ready to go, speaking of that draft party. Like, all of this makes sense to me now in, like, whatever the fuck happened from 19 and 20 must have made Howie Roseman so incredibly frustrated between, like, yes, everyone's happy with Jalen Hurts, and I'm sure he's so ecstatic that he like laid that flag down, or the owner did, or whatever happened there. But that was the beginning of a dramatic shift moving forward, and we felt that with guys like Jack Driscoll and all this other speed that came along with it, and we weren't sure which direction they were going, but they decided in an instant, we need Jalen Hurts. We need to follow along with whatever George is doing, so much so that let's get Glenn Schumann on the phone and just find out what the hell he's doing. Is there any chance that, is there any chance that, like, they haven't been talking for 3 years anyway? Even if they knew he wasn't going to take the DC job, they had to be in their ear almost every offseason, or scouts or whoever. There's too much good information for the Eagles to do this. Do you agree with that? They have way too much information about these guys.
Well, yeah, and think about it too, right? They were a 4-3 team just 2 seasons ago. They changed the whole system. Why did they do that? Because the best college teams with the best players are playing a more of a 3-4 front. So you got to switch what you do. I mean, otherwise we're talking like Brandon Graham, right? Michigan guy. Like, those are the kinds of things that you're looking at, because those are the guys that have played in your system in college. So you can project them and expect them to fit your system. So now they're like, all right, what are all the best teams doing? Let's change to that. Let's talk with those coaches, establish relationships, build pipelines. And think about this too, right? It's not just that a lot of these guys are Georgia Bulldogs at this point, but you've got plenty of Alabama players, and a lot of these Alabama players and Georgia players are guys that played at LSU. So you also have a lot of information about LSU people as well, and we're seeing those guys come into the system. So, like, it's just awesome to see the amount of roots that they're growing within the most professional league in college. So they're exactly where they need to be.
They had set this up so long ago that it's almost like it's absurd that they didn't turn the switch on like earlier, because Jeff Stoutland's been the ambassador for Nick Saban in Alabama for quite some time now. You know, like they knew exactly what was going on there, and unfortunately we got caught up in some duck bias. And by the way, Bulldog bias is fucking way better than Oregon bias.
Yeah, okay, well, yeah, let's do that. Good. Way better. Although, shout out to Mario.
Yes,
shout out to Marcus.
Yes, so it's all working. You see, that's like it's all full circle. That's crazy. That's right. Mariota's still here. This was the most beautiful display of disinformation, like I was saying up top there, that I've ever seen. Like it's the amount of running back talk, and shout out to Jeff McClain was mad that they didn't have all this. We didn't have this great discourse or whatever. I welcome it. I welcome all the bullshit, because that made the Falcons take Bijan Robinson at 8 or something like that. Drove of smoke where everybody's like, hey, the Eagles will literally never do this because the data shows that they will never take a running back. But it made two franchises flinch, in my opinion. Right? Like I think that between this, and you would have to think Vince Quinn, as we're all racing around here like squared in on football and running backs and all this other crap, that Howie Roseman behind the scenes is obviously using all of these new funky cool AI tools of predictability to find out like who, what, and where. And can you imagine that they're matching that information from all of the years of shit that they've been building since the Super Bowl? Can you imagine if they found a little switch and API key that just goes, here's everything we did, here's everything all these other teams have ever did, here's our main objective, here's our main goal, now shoot back at me how you would try and defeat me, and it would literally run a program on auto GPT for fucking days and tell you exactly what you need to be doing? If that sounds crazy to you, then you need to pay attention to that sector, because I guarantee you that's what the Eagles are doing. And just like when they were ahead with analytics, I have no doubt in my mind that they are investing every top dollar piece of money into those programs and into, because it's so brand new. Everyone's figuring out its capabilities. So from head to toe, from disinformation to the amount of information to the planning of this for the last 3 years, Vince Quinn has blown my fucking mind. Has there been anything ever like this? Set foot, planned perfectly, executed perfectly, 3 off seasons in a row in the Philadelphia Eagles franchise? I dare you to find a better off-seasonal stretch. I dare you. Dare you.
Yeah, it's hard to find something like this. I mean, you'd have to dig back into the Andy Reid era in the early 2000s when it was just NFC Championship game, NFC Championship game, NFC Championship game. And, like, maybe there's something in there. But in terms of the excitement of what this franchise is, because it's like, it's not just talent, it's not just players, it really is the whole encompassing thing. I mean, to have a guy like a Jomo, who you draft in the 7th round, who, by the way, went to college at 16 fucking years old, which is insane. He goes to the University of Texas at 16 and then gets 5 years at that program to go and develop and build, and he's still a really young guy. Just an absolutely driven person. You put him in an incredibly loaded defensive line conversation now. Like, Marlon Tuipulotu played a ton last year. Nobody's talking about him. Nobody cares. If that guy is the last guy on your roster at defensive line, you're stacked. Like, Ajomo's in here to push that guy. Contavious Street, he's in here to push that guy. The depth at their core spots is ridiculous. Tyler Steen is an unbelievable pick. I mean, he nails everything that you want. Think about this, too, with him. That guy was a defensive lineman when he went to Vanderbilt as a freshman. Defensive lineman. He comes in, then he starts to learn how to play right tackle on the fly, and then by the time he's done his college career, he's a left tackle at Alabama. Like, the guy's not polished at all. That's all the things that you read on his draft report. What's the problem? He's not polished. Oh, this thing with his technique and that. He could get a little stronger. Stellan's like, fuck yeah, give me that guy. I can fix that guy, no problem. Yes. Like, he hasn't had a chance yet, you know? So for them, they go, yeah, we can coach this guy up and see what happens. So that's what they're going to do, and I'm positive that pick is going to work. I mean, his floor is he's a rotational guy that can play anywhere because he's already played right tackle, left tackle, and he's done that in the SEC without any experience whatsoever. I mean, mean, it's crazy, man. So, like, they just have a total vision right now. They've got an entire coaching staff that echoes that. They've got a scouting team that's identifying these people properly. They're always great at information on the back end. They continue to do that. You have to figure that goes into the Jalen Carter assessment. And, like, here they are as a point where the Ringer was writing their draft recap of round 1, and Nolan Smith falls to the Eagles at 30, and their only comment, where everything else was like paragraph, Nolan Smith was, they can't keep getting away with this. And that was it. That was the entire draft evaluation. I was like, fuck yeah, because that's all they're doing right now. They're running laps around people.
Speaking of running laps around people, we have to get into this Jonathan Gannon-Cardinals thing. But I just want to remind you guys that one of the best ways to support the show is to go to liquiddeath.com/Bell, not only because of their badass teas, sparklings now. I mean, there's just so many goddamn beverages that they keep coming out with that are delicious. And more importantly, the Grim Leafer will satisfy your absolute soul during the summer. So, you know, it's upgraded 3 ounces from water to everything else, which I think is amazing. But not only do they care about, you know, your health while you're drinking it, but, you know, there's other ways that you can use Liquid Death. Did you hear about this, Vince Quinn? You can actually take a solid 19-ounce can of Liquid Death and use the Travis Barker, the now coined Travis Barker, what do you call it again, Taylor? The enema shooter?
Enema of the state.
Enema of the state. You can literally give yourself an enema via Travis Barker's new patented Enema of the State enema tool. And Liquid Death and an enema, never a better combination, and you can get 20% off of that right now. Go to liquiddeath.com/Bell. Gentlemen, I don't know if it was an enema that was given to the Cardinals because they need to get a lot of shit out of their organization. But I told you guys this before we came on, but have you guys ever seen Ocean's 11?
Yeah.
So between Marcus Hayes' story, which I guess is littered with untruths according to Howard Eskin, but I mean, this is something that you and I have discussed for a long time, pretty much since the birth of this podcast. Like, we can all dance around this. We can all pretend like Jonathan Gannon was a really great, awesome dude around here, and everyone really liked him, and like it's easy to pile on. But like, along with Howie Roseman's excellent planning from like Georgia and Alabama and Jalen Hurts and all this stuff, like they've been trying to push Jonathan Gannon out the door since he got hired here. Howie Roseman literally came and said, "This guy's a head coach." The moment he got in here, we all thought he was going to the Texans last year. We all thought he was going to go there this year. And then what happens? Literally fucking 8 minutes before the first round of the draft. Well, the story came out 3 days before that. I'm misplacing the timeline, right? It comes out that there was collusion between Jonathan Gannon and the Arizona Cardinals, and they talked to each other during the NFC Championship game and not during Super Bowl week. I got that right, in terms of the timeline?
It was news to me when it was 15 minutes before the draft.
Okay.
So if it came out before then, I missed it. That's when I saw it, and I was like, what the fuck is this? This is crazy.
I think I'm right. Then please correct us if we're wrong. 215-509-5833. Of course, jump into the Discord like everyone has been doing a wonderful job of doing at bellthebirdmen.com. But 8 minutes before the draft, this news comes out. The entire NFL probably doesn't know about it, or most of the NFL probably doesn't know about it. Suddenly, the fucking Eagles jump up from 28 spots out of nowhere because Jonathan Gannon made a boo-boo, right? And in this boo-boo, apparently, according to Marcus Hayes, Jonathan Gannon was the one that makes contact with the Arizona Cardinals about the job during or after the NFC Championship game while you're prepping for the Super Bowl. And Howard Eskin is trying to mask this as if the Eagles aren't furious. They're mad, but they're not furious. That's the tone. Have we met Nick Sirianni once? He gets pissed off if someone goes off sides. He like loses his shit. If that can you imagine the culture that we've talked about? The people that are surrounding the locker room, the fact that CJGJ isn't here. If something doesn't smell right, you're getting bounced out of here. And the same future will happen if, one of those Georgia guys doesn't really work out either. But, like, This doesn't pass the smell test for me in a lot of different ways, and what I really think happened is Howie Roseman, just like Bernie Mac in Ocean's 11, when he's trying to make a deal with the car dealers on getting those vans and they're just not coming to a price, and he just ends up squeezing the ever-living shit out of his hand and doesn't say a word, and the guy across, the car dealer, knows exactly what he means by doing that and immediately lowers the price by like $5,000. And that's what happened here. They knew it, they held on to it, and they said, you're going to pay, you son of a bitch, because you are the newest GM in the league. Your new head coach just fucked up. It's probably one of the biggest reasons why Buda Baker wants his ass all the way the fuck out of there after meeting that guy. Jonathan Gannon has lied to the Philadelphia media. He has now lied to his bosses during a Super Bowl week. He lied to his future employer. He did not have a post-press conference because if he opens his mouth one more time, he's probably going to fuck the Cardinals again while explaining how ridiculously stupid he did all of this. Man, I don't care what Eskin says or what Hayes says. The evidence speaks for itself. They fucking hate this guy. That's why Vic Fangio was in there. That's why he was going to be deserving of a Super Bowl ring if they won, and they made that very fucking clear before the game started, did they not? So do not sell me that they were happy and this was just, oh, you're bad, and we're going to take the advantage of the rules here, Vince Quinn. They legitimately hope that Jonathan Gannon burns out so quickly in Arizona. Also, on top of which, speaking of misinformation, I think Howie fed Paris Johnson to everybody to make them leap, and he's just going like a fucking puppeteer the whole time. He played.
Oh, I totally believe that.
Played him the
100%.
whole time.
Yeah, I mean, he's a consummate Eagles pick, and he's the kind of guy that if I saw him at 10 and they ended up taking him, you know, if Carter was off the board, I'd be fine with it. He was one of the few guys I'd be okay with. But yeah, like Carter's clearly the better fit and the guy that makes the most sense. And I could see why dumb teams would just go, oh, yeah, it's an offensive lineman. It's the Eagles. That's the guy. Everything else is a smokescreen. They don't want Carter. And for Gannon to go up and do that or probably influence them doing that, thinking he's getting one back at them is hilarious. I mean, it's genuinely funny. And, like, it shows how terrible he is at all of this stuff tactically when it comes to just being a professional in the NFL, man. Like, saying all that stuff about the media when it wasn't true. If you want to say radio guys or whatever, like, that's one thing. But to say that when you talk about it in a football sense as a coach, when you're saying the media, you're talking about the reporters. So you got to figure out what you're doing there. And then the fact that he snakes out of doing a draft press conference, which is usually the biggest layup in the world, because you're like, see this guy in the first round? We love this guy. We think he's going to be a cornerstone for a long time. Base of the franchise, like whatever. You could do all that shit. He doesn't do it. So now it's just going to add more tension and drama for all of the other shit that you've just been talking about, the tampering and everything. Like, how can you not focus in on that as a self-respecting media person when he doesn't show up? So he's just making it harder for himself. And I just don't think he's ready for this. I mean, he looks like a mess already out there.
Not to mention that Kyler Murray probably also made that pick, too, on top of that, because I think he'd been advocating for Paris Johnson for like 2 weeks before that or at some point during the combine.
Said.
So.
Which is so funny. Kyler Murray, because I forget who said it. I saw it on Twitter. But someone going for like, Kyler Murray had a homework clause in his contract, and now apparently he's grinding tape on college linemen. Like, get the fuck out of here.
Said that, and I thought that was hilarious. Yeah.
So funny. So, yeah, I'm with him on that. I think that story's kind of bullshit, but whatever. The whole thing's a joke. And clearly that team's tanking, right? Like, they're not trying to win shit this year. They traded back a lot and whatever. They're not trying to win, man. That team, they're a joke.
That's partly why they hired Jonathan Gannon, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Hear me out.
What?
Hear me out. I just realized something. If the Eagles knew this, the NFC Championship game, and like they get to the Super Bowl and they know all this shit and they go to the Cardinals and say, we know what you did. You have to hire Jonathan Gannon as your next head coach or you're going to lose a lot of picks. We need this guy out of here. You know, like they were had an opportunity to replace him with Vic Fangio, right? They knew that. I bet you they had severe influence in making sure he got hired with the Cardinals if they already knew that they had contact with him. Because maybe it's just, I don't know, I'm just throwing it out there, because maybe it was just for an interview, and then now they're forced to hire them because it would damage the franchise further if you didn't hire him after this. I don't know. Just throwing it out there.
My theory is that they got fucked on it, and they are pissed off because Gannon got distracted. And what happened was, okay, normally, like, if you were getting a tampering charge like this, I would imagine it's a fine, so Cardinals are going to pay some money, and the league would dock them a pick. The fact that this was a trade was Super Bowl compensation. This was, we distracted your defensive coordinator. You guys lost the Super Bowl. You gave up more points you scored more points than any team in the history of the Super Bowl to lose. So Gannon allowed more points than anybody for a team that scored that much. And we are accountable for this. And that's why we're going to do this trade on draft night so it gets buried as soon as possible for everybody. And that's the compromise. Eagles get the pick. The Cardinals let this thing die and don't get as much heat on themselves, and they try to live their lives. But it smells, man. The whole thing smells.
Oh, boy. I can't wait. I can't wait for 10 years from now to whoever. Hopefully Jeff McLean's still hanging around and telling us all the real good, juicy stories about that. But, as long as
it's going to be 2 years from now when Gannon gets fired. That's when it's going to come out. Then the Eagles are going to, throw dirt on his grave,
Listen, we all win here. You tank. You got to hire Jonathan Gannon. We all hate him. He gets kicked back down to a linebacker coach somewhere in D3. Okay, everybody wins. It's very Better Call Saul like plot. Maybe that's where my head is because I've been watching the last season here. But
I got to catch up on that show.
Last season's amazing. If you haven't, the whole show's amazing. What am I talking about? Speaking of amazing shows, I hope you think ours is too. Make sure you're subscribing down if you're watching on YouTube, and certainly whatever podcast platform you're listening to us on. Make sure the 5 stars and the follows and all that stuff are happening, because that also helps us a ton, and we so appreciate you guys being a part of the live stream. Thanks again to Chris Wood and, of course, Jamie over at Calf Barbecue for hanging out in studio. Thomas Peterson over at Breaking the Birds for, just giving us all that good info that he usually does, and from like 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. too. So I don't know how he does it, but appreciate him for joining us on the live stream. For everybody watching and listening, Vince Quinn, Taylor Kredatus, you got any final words?
Yeah, final word for me. Shout out Legatron, baby. Motherfucking Legatron. This guy is the truth. He shanks punts like crazy, but I've seen him punt it. John, I've seen this guy punt it 70 yards multiple times.
Listen, I got excited over a gentleman named Murder Leg at one point. I love it. I'm all about it, and I want to see more 70-yard punts. Let's see him make the team first.
Yeah, nope. 70-yard punts. I don't care. He's also a field goal kicker. Elliott gets hurt. This is the guy. I'm rooting so hard for Legatron to make this team.
And he probably will, because that's all you really need to do, right? Just bomb it. Who cares if it's a touchback? Just bomb it down 70 yards. The offense and defense will take care of the rest.
I mean, he flips the entire field. I saw he punted it from like the 13 and it landed at the opposing 20. That's crazy.
Taylor Kredatus, this man tells me he will not watch college football, and yet he just described the most exciting play in the Big Ten. Come on, man.
I thought this was an anti-kicking podcast. It's not.
It is for me. That's why, not for Vince, and probably our good friend Matt Maratea. So,
yeah, no, I'm rooting for kickers, man. Give me a 63-yard field goal to win a game. It's fun.
Taylor Kredatus, one of my last thoughts is a too old man of me to absolutely think 1991-92 Eagles defense is the Kelly Greens coming in and see all these Georgia players coming in and thinking Jerome Brown, Miami Hurricanes, Reggie White, and has a chance to be that special, because that's my thought.
Maybe it can be better, more efficient.
I think so.
Well, there's actual offensive coaching this time. So,
bingo.
Yeah. Randall has an offensive coordinator. And, that's what's happening right now.
Yes. Very exciting stuff. And Sean Desai still has not had a press conference. Question mark? We'll see. We'll see you this week, too. Appreciate you following us everywhere. Bell the Bird, and lots more stories coming out of these noggins, everybody. Okay, bye.